Before money, there was barter. It's the oldest form of commerce in human history, wherein goods and services are traded directly for other goods and services. Now, in 2023, Iraq and Iran have agreed to a unique barter-style arrangement. The neighboring countries will trade crude oil directly for natural gas. In response to Iran's nuclear program, the US imposed sanctions on its energy exports, but that left Iraq unable to pay directly for its neighbor's gas. Instead, payments had to be held and released only with US approval. The US only approved the payments on the condition they were used to fund imports of food and medicine. After more than $12 billion in unpaid bills, Tehran halved its supply to Baghdad.
Considering the mechanism for transfers and its complexity, we did not get the approval for the transfer of all the dues in order to ensure the continuity of supplies from the Iranian side. So, the decision was taken to stop the gas supplies by more than 50%. It clearly impacted power production.
Gas is crucial to Iraq's energy production. In recent years, widespread protests and violence have erupted over political turmoil and power cuts. This new deal aims to maintain the steady supply of Iranian gas by circumventing the US approval system.
We will give crude oil, black oil in exchange for gas, Iranian gas. This way, we will ensure that we preserve the continuity of gas supply, and at the same time, we will meet our financial obligations for this imported gas.
Iraq relies on Iran's gas imports for almost a third of its energy needs. The flow of gas should end power cuts that have in turn affected the production of oil, and allow Iraq to invest in their own projects to boost gas production. Officials say it may take up to 3 years to achieve. It will bypass US sanctions aimed at reducing Iran's gas exports, and thereby help to boost GDP. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and for Iraq, this deal may allow the nation to reap the benefits of natural gas for years to come. Emre Boz, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with Middle East and North Africa business analyst Leila Hatoum. She joins us now from Beirut. Really good to have you back with us, Leila. Now, this oil and gas barter deal certainly stands to benefit both Iran and Iraq. How significant is this arrangement in your view?
It is to a certain degree. First of all, thank you for having me again. And it is to a certain degree healthy for both countries, because Iraq cannot meet all its debt obligations towards Iran. For the past 5 to 8 years, Iraq had accumulated a debt of about $12 billion for the electricity supplements that it gets from Iran. And the Iranians need the hard cash at one point or another to pay for their needs. For example, they can't get the cash directly, but they need to pay for food and other necessities that the US sanctions can approve of when it comes to the payments. Now, when it comes to both relations, I don't see the crude oil and also fuel oil that's going to be sent or bartered by Iraq to Iran in exchange of gas as a long-term solution or as good for the long term. It's only good for the short term. We have entered the hot season at the moment. There's going to be an increased need for electricity to waiver off the heat waves that Iraq would be facing. But after that, basically, what's the solution? Iraq needs to boost its infrastructure in cultivating oil from its cultivating gas from its fields, as well as needs to find other solutions for the recurrent electricity and power cuts. The idea is that this is not the first time that Iran actually cuts off or reduces its gas exports to Iraq. It has done so also last year and the year before. So they need to find a solution for that.
That's right. As you say, Iraq had amassed billions of dollars worth of debt to Iran, partly because the United States refused to approve sanctions waivers that would allow Iraq to transfer these funds to Iran. We haven't heard a response from Washington as yet, but do you think the United States might be unhappy with this arrangement because of the sanctions that are in place against Tehran?
To a certain degree, bypassing the sanctions that the US has imposed on Iran, would anger the Americans at one point or another. But if you look at it, irrespective, the Iraqis wouldn't have suggested such a deal without knowing that the Americans basically wouldn't be happy. Like the Americans at one point or another would approve it indirectly. So that's why they went into the barter deal. That's the first thing. The other thing is that the accumulated sanctions by the US on Iraq for the longest time, for nearly like a decade and a half, 2 decades, had killed its infrastructure in investing in basically producing proper electricity sector. They don't have a proper electricity sector so far. And the accumulated US sanctions on Iran had deprived the country from its hard cash that it would have been able to accumulate had it been exporting its gas. Currently, the largest two importers of gas from Iran are only China and India. The rest of the world doesn't take gas from Iran. So it's a sad thing. The Americans wouldn't be happy on the surface, but I think they have given the approval indirectly. We've heard last month and earlier this month that the Americans had approved the payment of $1.8 to $2.7 billion from the Iraqi accumulated debt towards Iran. And basically that insinuates indirectly that the Americans are okay with that.